One main goal with a lot of aspiring content creators is to secure their first brand deal. But unfortunately, a lot of content creators are under the impression that this can only happen once you reach a certain amount of followers or subscribers. But I'm here to say that that is not true, and you can absolutely secure your first brand deal with less than 5,000 followers. I know this because I've personally done this myself, and I really want to share some of the tips that I have for doing this if you've got a smaller following and if you are finally looking at taking that next step into working with brands. So in today's video, we are really going to be going in depth on some of these points that will hopefully help you in getting your first brand deal. But for those of you who are new here, my name is Kaylee and I'm a beauty and fashion photographer based near Sydney, Australia. But I'm also a travel content creator, and I started this channel a few years ago to talk about all things freelancing, content creation, social media, and business. So as a professional photographer and as someone who has had a YouTube channel now for 10 years, I have had quite a bit of experience in working with brands. So really behind the scenes in terms of working with brands with their marketing, but also with doing my own content creation and getting brand sponsorships through that as well. So luckily I've managed to pick up a little bit of information over the years in terms of working with brands and really how you can start reaching out to them. And I really would love to do a video about pitching in future. So if you'd like to see a video on pitching to brands in particular, please let me know down in the comments section below, because I'd love to do a video like that. We are going to be talking about that a little bit in this video, but I'm also going to be going through some other things that you can be working towards while you are wanting to secure that first brand deal, and some things that may help you kind of get there. So we're going to jump straight into some of these points now, and let's get into it. So I think one of the most important things when you're trying to attract that first brand deal is to really have a consistency and flow with your account. So whether you're a YouTuber, whether you're an Instagrammer or a TikToker, making sure that you've got a consistent flow of content is really important. Most brands are really going to be attracted to those content creators, whether they're large or small, that have that consistent flow of content and who are continuously working on building their brands and really building their content base. I think it's really undervalued in a lot of ways because unfortunately with inconsistency on social media, as I've talked about on my YouTube channel before, it can be really difficult to either secure brand deals and to really see that success from social media. Unfortunately, consistency is valued in all aspects, and brands are really no different here. So making sure that you've got that really good schedule that works for you and that is consistent. Now, I'm not saying that you have to be posting daily content and you have to be posting all the time. That's definitely not what I'm saying. And I think that it's really important to make sure that you have a schedule that is worked into your lifestyle and what you can achieve. There's really no point in terms of doing a schedule that is overcommitting in any sense. So if you do have a job on the side and you're looking at getting into content creation full time, it's really important to just work to what you can achieve and what is realistic as well. But really having that consistency there helps with brands really taking notice of you and seeing that you're consistently putting that content out and that you are really working towards those goals, because I think it really gives them confidence to know that you're going to continue with this and you're going to continue building your brand, and you're not going to disappear for like 3 months after you post a branded video or anything like that. I think along with staying consistent, it's really good to consistently tag brands in posts. So whether you're creating content for Instagram or TikTok, I think these are the two most important places that you could be tagging brands in your content. I do this all the time because I know that there's a lot of brands that I would love to work with out there, and I like to tag them in some of my posts that are really relevant. And sometimes the social media team from these brands will comment on my work or they'll follow me back, and things like that tend to happen. And it just sort of gets the ball rolling with having brands actually starting to notice your content. And as sad as it sounds sometimes, unfortunately, a lot of these brands just don't know who you are unless you really put yourself in front of them. And you can do this with pitching, which I'm also going to talk about in this video, but you can really do this with also tagging brands. And that's a really simple thing to do when you're consistently putting out content and consistently tagging them. It just means that you're really putting yourself in front of them consistently as well. As well as tagging them in your posts, you can also use hashtags that are uniquely theirs. So if you go to their Instagram or TikTok accounts, for example, they may have a hashtag listed in their bio, which might be for features, or for them to see that content that you might be posting with their brand in it for whatever reason. So for example, if it's like a t-shirt company, then if you're wearing a t-shirt of theirs, of a brand that you really love, you can use that hashtag and maybe you might get a feature on their account, or it's just going to give you that little bit more exposure towards that particular brand. Either way, using hashtags and tagging them in the posts is a really great way to get their attention. Now, the second thing you can really do to work towards towards getting your first brand deal is to focus on your engagement rate and your interactions. I really can't stress how important this actually is, because engagement rate is one of those main metrics that a lot of brands will use in terms of whether they want to work with you or not. And luckily enough for smaller creators, a lot of the time our engagement rates tend to be a little bit better, and that's usually because you simply have less followers. So for example, if you've got 100,000 followers, your content's generally not going to be pushed out to 100,000 of your subscribers. In fact, it's only going to get pushed out to a small percentage, but that tends to be a larger percentage when you're a smaller creator. It's also much easier as a smaller creator to stay engaged with your community and to reply to comments, even all of your comments if you wish to do so, and even engaging with people in your niche or in your community in general. It just makes it a lot easier when you have less followers. So the more you can keep that engagement rate up and those interactions, so people commenting on your work, saving your content as well is really important, but mainly liking and commenting and really showing that they're engaging with your content, that's a really key metric for brands to look at, and it's something that really should be a focus. And because engagement rates and interactions are so important for brand deals, it's also imperative that you've got a way to track these metrics. And that actually brings me to today's video sponsor, Metricool. Metricool is an all-in-one social media tool for creators. It can be really difficult to manage multiple social media accounts, and as content creators, we know how time-consuming this process can be. From planning content to scheduling to tracking analytics and then interacting with your audience, doing this across several platforms can feel like a disorganized mess. But with Metricool, I can answer all of my comments from multiple social media accounts, plan and schedule content, and track detailed analytics all in one place. As I mentioned, analytics can be imperative for brand deals, so tracking them in a simple and easy to view interface is something that I personally love. Not to even mention that Metricool is a huge time saver. Aside from easy planning and scheduling, the hashtag search for Instagram and TikTok is one of my favorite features, which easily allows me to see the most popular hashtags of any given topic, along with how many times the hashtag has been used. And I can easily save them for later using the save text feature. So be as organized as possible for your first potential brand deal and check out Metricool. To try Metricool for free, click on the link in the description box below and get 30 free days for any premium plan. Thanks again to Metricool for sponsoring this video. And here's a quick little demo of how you can actually see your engagement rate for Instagram in particular in Metricool. Okay, so we're currently in the Instagram interface of Metricool, and I'm looking at my analytics here. And if we just switch the date range up the top here to the last 90 days, because that's my favorite kind of date range that I like to base trends off, and especially when I tend to enter these details or send these details to a brand, then I can scroll down to the bottom here underneath all of my demographics. And then in the organic summary for posts published in the period, I can see my engagement rate is listed here for Instagram at 13.6. And if I hover over it, it's also going to tell me that that has actually gone up about 18% as opposed to the last period of time. So I think that that's looking quite good at the moment. And I'm going to continue working on my engagement rate because, as I said, it's one of the most important metrics that brands will use for whether they're going to work with you or not. You can also scroll down further here to the bottom and you can actually look at some of your recent posts. So here you can see that this is based off the most amount of comments, and you can actually look at your metrics a little bit more in depth in terms of your interactions. So you've got your likes, your comments, your saves, your general interactions, and then your organic engagement as well. So this is a really easy way to see how your posts are tracking in terms of engagement, and you can click on another one of these headings if you prefer to filter by a different metric or interaction. The great thing about this is that you have your posts and your reels separate. So if I scroll down here, you can see that I have a different engagement rate for my reels, and that has actually gone down slightly. So that is definitely something I'm going to have to look at working on. I'm finding that some of my posts are getting better engagement overall than even some of my reels at the moment. And I tend to post a lot more reels than posts. So it's probably been a little bit skewed in that way, but this is a really good way to track it at the moment and to see how things are going. And you can also see your organic interactions as well just beneath. So again, you can track all of your reels here, and you can also see your detailed organic metrics and general interactions along with your engagement as well. Now, it's important to remember that Instagram doesn't actually show you your engagement rate, and platforms like Metricool do. So it's really important that you do find out your engagement rate and that you are tracking it. Now, the third tip for getting your first brand deal with under 5,000 followers is to create a media kit. Now, again, this is really a preparation-based tip, and it's really important that you do have a media kit. And a media kit can be something really, really simple. I would love to do a video on this where we go through what you can include, but the main things to include are usually your demographics. So it will be your age range of your audience, the gender of your audience, and the top countries where your audience is based. Some people also like to put their rates in their media kit, and I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with this. However, I have actually stopped doing this because I'm finding that depending on what a brand wants at any given time for a brand deal, I do find that I have to quote them individually in terms of what they want specifically, and it is really hard to put a one set figure in a media kit unless you're happy to do so, and some of the brands you're working for are very similar in that respect and you can quote them the same figure. I do find this is a little bit harder for me at times, so I have stopped doing this, but that is also something that you can offer in your media kit is some pricing. I prefer to just have my main demographics, my view counts as well, just some of my main analytics, for example, from YouTube and from Instagram. Being that those are my most common accounts where I do get brand deals, those are the ones that I really do prepare for. Now, you can make a media kit for each social media site if you want, and that will just make things a bit clearer to brands in terms of where your audience is coming from in each of those platforms. But again, why media kits are so important is that it really gives the brand a snapshot of what your audience looks like and who they may be marketing to. Because if that doesn't really align with this particular brand that may have contacted you, or you may have contacted them, they may be less inclined to give you a brand deal in the end. Or they may be more inclined to give you a brand deal, depending on your demographics and depending on who their audience is as well. So make sure you do have a media kit in waiting, because as soon as you do get that first email for a potential brand deal, you want to be able to send this off to them and give them really good clarity around who your audience is. And also your general statistics month to month. So you can either do this over 30 days or 90 days. Personally, I love doing this and averaging out some of these numbers over 90 days because I feel like 90 days captures a bit more of a trend instead of 30 days where it still can shift month to month. Numbers and things like that can really shift in that time frame. So I feel that 90 days gives a little bit more of a bigger picture to brands who are really wanting to know what my audience looks like. Now, the fourth tip is one of my favorites, and it is to pitch to brands. I will say this all the time on my channel, but I truly believe that pitching is one of the most important things you can do to start getting your work in front of other brands. Now, you can pitch in conjunction with using a media kit, and I highly recommend this because again, it's giving them this snapshot of your audience and of what your channel or your account looks like. You can also tell the brands when you're pitching to them a little bit about yourself and your brand. And the way that I would generally go about pitching is going through LinkedIn and trying to find some of the talent partnership managers to see if they are listed on there underneath the brands that you might be searching for on LinkedIn. And then I usually try and guess their email addresses. Now, it's a really easy way to do this a lot of the time, because if you look on a website of any given brand and you look at the main contact emails, if they're listed, quite often they'll just likely be at sephora.com or something similar. And usually you can kind of guess the emails that are needed even for brand partnership managers and things like that by maybe grabbing their name off LinkedIn and trying to guess the email address that way. That's kind of like the best way that I know to really pitch out to some of these brands directly. But you can also use other avenues like Instagram and TikTok. I think in this day and age, it's a little bit more generally accepted to do this because you will be getting directly in with a social media team and they may pass your details on to the necessary people. I do prefer to use email when I'm pitching, but I'm a little bit old school that way and I just like to have that little bit more of a professional touch. But if you're finding it difficult to get in contact with certain brands, I definitely feel that it's still absolutely doable through Instagram and TikTok as well. If you would like me to do a video about pitching where I really go in depth with this and talk about some of the tips and tricks associated with this, definitely let me know and I'd love to film a video on pitching really soon. And the fifth tip today on how to be prepared for your first brand deal and even to find an avenue of actually securing your first brand deal is to join some of the websites out there for creators and brands. Now, what I talk about when I say websites for creators and brands is really talking about some of these websites that are out there now that are specifically built for creators to apply to brand campaigns. And there's a lot of them out there now, which is really great for a lot of smaller creators. Now, a lot of these websites do not necessarily need you to have a lot of subscribers. Quite often they might start from 1,000 or 3,000, and you may be able to apply to some of these brand brand campaigns with a small amount of followers. So I would highly recommend getting onto some of these websites, signing up, seeing what the requirements are and whether you're eligible to apply, and then really get started, because quite often you'll be able to apply to these brand campaigns. You'll either get approved or rejected on any instance, and it's absolutely worth a shot if you're a smaller creator, because quite often they will have things like UGC content and sponsored posts available, and even free product and experiences for those of you who may be travel content creators and the like. So it's really worth getting onto some of these websites and seeing what's available and really trying to put yourself out there if you're really wanting to secure that first brand deal. Some of these sites in Australia specifically include Tribe and Vamp, and I know there's definitely more worldwide ones. Like I think Join Brands is also another really popular one for people to apply to. So definitely research, because there's a lot of them out there now and they're definitely worthwhile to start applying to. Well, thank you so much for watching this video today, and if you liked it, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed to this channel already, make sure you do, because I'll be posting a lot more in future. Let me know if you're hoping to secure your first brand deal this year, and if you've got any questions or if you're struggling with anything, because I'd love to try and help out as best I can. Again, if you're interested in checking out Metricool, make sure to click the link in the description box below and go grab 30 days off any premium plan. But thank you so much again for watching this video today, and I'll see you in the next one.